Hello, loves. Earlier today we were talking about using a pendulum and especially using a pendulum to work on the chakras. So I offered to do a little introduction video on the pendulum, and more specifically how we can use it to work on ourselves, our loved ones, and other people as far as balancing, opening, and healing the chakras. Now, as a basic overview, we'll talk about what chakras are, what a pendulum is, um, and so we'll just start with the basics. Firstly, technically, a pendulum is a dowsing tool, but most people associate dowsing with the rods that people used to use in the Old West, and some people still do for divining rods to find water. A pendulum is the same idea, the same concept, in that um, it just pulls on the natural energies um, that are associated with magnetics and the different things that the meridians that are in our own bodies and and collectively in the bodies of those who we work with. So a pendulum is basically anything that is tied on to a string. If you're really desperate, you can use a string and a paper clip. However, I don't necessarily recommend that because we create a relationship with the objects that we touch, and so um, it's best to get a pendulum, a quality pendulum that you can establish a relationship with. Dare I say that you love. Um, my pendulum is quite special to me, and I do love my pendulum. This is, I'll hold it here for you to see. It's an angel pendulum with an angel light, and you'll see it moving. She loves working, and I say it's a she, but she loves working and loves the time that we spend together. And I know that's silly to say, but those of you who work with crystals may have an understanding of the different kinds of relationships that you develop with the different crystals that you use. Now you'll see this is the typical kind of pendulum that you would have. A lot of pendulums will have a point on them, and I highly recommend that if you're going to be using dowsing charts, which we'll talk about later, that you get one that you source a pendulum that has a very distinct point at the bottom of it, because as you can tell, if you're working with a dowsing chart which has like specific letters on it, she can sometimes be challenged to see exactly what letter she's landing on, but we get there. Now, if you don't have a pendulum and you just want to play and see what pendulum dowsing is about, have no fear. You can also use a necklace, with a pendant on the bottom, and I suggest if you do use a necklace with a pendant, that it is one that has some meaning to you, that it's one that you have a special relationship with. So you might have some people might have a Saint Christopher that they wear for protection. Other people might have birthstones or a diamond or something that is significant to them. The reason is, and you want it to be a little heavy. You want it to have some weight to it, because it's the weight that drives the movement of the pendulum. So if you have something that's very light, you're not going to get as accurate a reading on it as something that is heavier. But you don't want anything too heavy, simply because the movements are a little bit slower, so it's harder to get an accurate reading on. But So I just wanted to show you this for demonstrative purposes, so that if you don't have a pendulum, that you can still work with us and move along with us in this video, so that you can see kind of how things work. If you'd like to pause here and get yourself a pendulum, you can, if you have a pendulum, go ahead and get that. If you do not have a pendulum, please get a necklace with a pendant on it, just for the purposes that we will use today. Now, the first thing that you want to do after you have gotten your pendulum, and this may sound a bit silly, but trust me on this, just kind of go with it, if you will. Your pendulum is your friend, and so as with our closest relationships, we want to make sure that we have a foundation of trust and mutual respect. So what we'd like to do when we first have our pendulum is just simply take it and bless it. And the most important thing that we can do is thank it. So we might say something, whatever works for you, using your intuition and your guidance. Thank you, pendulum, for working with me. Thank you for, in all circumstances, speaking the truth. Thank you for being an instrument of light and love and healing to those that we work with. Thank you. Now, after we've done that, we want to create an understanding with our particular pendulum, how we hold it, how it answers us. So what we'll do is, I hold my pendulum as such between my thumb and my first finger. You can see that. Now, some people hold it with their thumb and their middle finger. The key point, though, is for you to be comfortable, and for you to be able to position it in such a way that you're not technically influencing it, that you're allowing the pendulum to answer of its own will, in its own divine connection to source. So we'll hold it. I'll hold it like this, and I just wrap the chain. You see, I wrap the chain kind of around my finger and let it dangle, so that I'm not influencing it in any way. And I'll hold it. I'll shorten it just so that you can see it. But I usually like to have it a bit longer. But for our purposes here, I'll hold it. And so we just let it come to a rest. And I like to ask for its permission, if it's feeling up to doing some work or playing as it is. And so, I'll think the question, would you like to, help me work on this particular client? And my pendulum circles when it's saying yes. Okay? Now, in order to develop a relationship with your pendulum, you want to understand how it answers you. It's no use to anyone if you can't understand what the information that you're getting from your pendulum. So what you do is you just ask it questions that you already know, like, the answer to. So for example, I hope she doesn't play with me here, but for example, I might say, am I a cat? And for me, when I say, am I a cat, there's no movement, because I'm not a cat. However, if I say, am I female? And she will start to move. Okay, so we'll see as we go through this, that sometimes the movements are very obvious and other times they're not so much. Um, so what I would like to do at this point is just ask a few questions so that you can see how um, the pendulum kind of works. So, do I live in the United States? And I don't know if you can tell, it's moving back and forth. It's not a circle. No, I do not live in the United States. I actually live in the UK. So do I live in the UK? And you see how it changes to circling. Okay. On the screen, it might appear that I'm trying to see if I can get a better. Let's see there. You can see a little bit better, huh? How it moves there. Okay. Now, if I ask it a question like, "Am I a girl?" it stops. Now, the reason is, to you and I, obviously, I'm a girl, but we have to make sure that the questions that we're asking are questions that our pendulum can give definitive answers to. As a collective, a girl is sometimes associated with a particular age. So the pendulum might think, well, no, you're not a girl because you're older. And so if I change the question to, am I a woman? And then we get a positive answer. So it's very important that when you're asking questions, that you ask questions as specifically as you can, so as to get the most clear answer. Now, moving on to the chakras, talking a little bit about what chakras are. Chakras are energy centers that are in our bodies. And the main chakras, those of you that are familiar with yoga are probably familiar with the chakras, but for those that aren't familiar with the chakras, they represent different energy centers in our body, and we have 7 of them. It's important for us to be balanced in all of our chakras. When we're not balanced, we can create either energetic or physical illnesses may manifest. These chakras are each associated with different different collective energies. So for example, we'll start by, for the first chakra is the root chakra. And that's located on our bottoms. When you're sitting in a chair, that's going to be the part that's touching the chair. So that's our root chakra. And that is basically our survival chakra. That's where our impulses, our flight and fight responses are going to come through. And a lot of times when people have that chakra closed, they are concerned with their own survival, and usually it's going to be on a subconscious level, but it may manifest in different fear-based behavior. Then our next chakra is our sacrum, or sacral chakra. If you put your thumb on your navel and put your pinky facing down, where your palm lands is the basic location of your sacrum. This is going to be your personal relationships, your intimate relationships, the feminine body, and well, your reproductive organs are going to be located there. Now, if you take your pinky and put it on your navel and then put your thumb pointing up, that's going to be your solar plexus. This relates to your wider community relations, where your place in the world, how you feel, the security that you feel in community. And so it's going to be outside of your family, in work relationships, as well as just general friendships, things like that. And then of course we have our heart chakra, our throat chakra, our third eye, and our crown. Okay? And all of these, in order to be in a good flow, need to be open, preferably to the same extent and going in the same direction. What I have found is that often when a chakra is closed, the person has had, some kind of upset, and it may need some steady assistance in opening the chakra and possibly in holding it open. And we'll go through that as we go through the exercise. Now, I'm going to use one of my children as the guinea pig, if you will, for checking the chakras, simply because I know that I haven't checked on them in quite some time, and I don't know what to expect. This is a real time kind of exercise, if you will. But I do know that they've had a few upsets in the last couple of days, and so it would be really interesting and educational for me as well to check their chakras. Now, when we start with the checking the chakras, I generally start at the root and work my way up. And before we do that, I need to back up a little bit. You're going to need to make sure that you are aware of how your pendulum reads, like yes and no. So once you went through the exercise of asking it the test questions, you're making a mental note, your pendulum may react completely different to mine, and different pendulums may react differently. So just make sure that you are clear prior to beginning an exercise of two things. One is that you know how your pendulum is going to respond, what it's saying to you. And secondly, it's really important to have the person's permission. As a mother, you'll have your child's inherent permission to do healing work on him, but I do, just for integrity, I would prefer that if my child's like 13, 14 years old, to ask them if we have their permission to work. 13 and up, you need the other person's permission, because some of the things that you can discover can be quite intimate or embarrassing. If you were to see, for example, they have sacral issues, and they're like, I don't want to talk about this. So, it's good to bear in mind that it's always important to have the other person's permission. But since my children are a bit younger, then it's fine for me to do it. Go ahead and do that. And I always, the other person that I'm working with, after I've gotten their permission, I do advise them to make sure that after we've done the healing, to drink plenty of water. Because this is quite a powerful healing when done with the intent of love and light and restoring a person's natural connection to source. So with that, we'll get started. If you're working with a person, one-on-one, you obviously you don't need to say their name, because they're sitting right there and it would sound kind of silly. But if you're working on the person from a distance, you can either speak their name out loud, or in my case, I'll think it silently to protect my child's privacy. And then you just say, like to check this person's chakra. You talk to the pendulum and tell them, I'd like to check this person's chakras. Do I have your permission to do this? And I'm getting a yes. Okay, so start at the root chakra for this child. Okay. And can you see that it came to a stop? Okay, so this child's root chakra is closed right now. So, which doesn't come as a real surprise, because this child has been just a little bit needy through the Mercury retrograde. So it's not it doesn't mean anything bad. And you'll see as I'm talking that it starts moving a little bit. That means that it's opening up. And you'll see it start to circle. Okay, and then, so it's circling. That just means that it's opening up. Now sometimes if it's wobbly and it's not showing up in the monitor very well, but it is a bit wobbly. I'll take my other hand and place it in front of the pendulum. And it's just sending it energy. It's getting a bit more steady. So now the root chakra is open and steady. So we move on to the sacrum. So it's child sacrum. And again, you see it comes to a wobbly close. It's not completely closed, because if it's completely closed, it wouldn't move at all. Again, just to make it go a little bit quicker and a little bit more steady. Send it a little bit of energy. And here we go, get started again. Alright. Okay. Now we'll move on to the solar plexus. Send it a little bit of energy. And you'll see it's the main thing is not moving your hand that's holding the pendulum. You keep that steady so we don't influence the pendulum at all. Okay. And this child's heart. And you'll see the heart chakra's open. Very loving child too. Okay. And then the throat chakra. Again, see it's open. Third eye, open. And crown. Again, very open. Okay, so that is basically how we go through the chakra filling. And I showed you how when it's stuck or closed, how you can send it some energy and get it going again. One of the things I like to do is when I have more than one chakra that was a bit closed or weak, I like to put in what nurses would recognize as a stent, kind of a temporary little tube. And so you just imagine the person's body, and you imagine just a little tube of light coming in from the crown. You don't have to do this with your hands when you're imagining. Right, you need just a tube like that, from the crown all the way down to their root chakra, through their spine. Using the spine as your basis. You just visualize the light from source, a white, pure healing light, flowing through the person's body through the crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, sacrum, and root. And that really, it sounds very simple, but it does have a stabilizing effect and a healing effect, and it really does re-energize them and allow them to reconnect with their own internal source of energy. So I hope that you found this helpful, and if you have any questions, let me know if I can make something a little bit more clear. I did want to mention, I think I mentioned this earlier, about dowsing charts. Dowsing charts, should you choose to move a bit further in working with your pendulum, dowsing charts can be quite helpful. There's spiritual response therapy technicians who use dowsing charts and have big books of dowsing charts to help them, determine wonderful determinations about all kinds of different supplements that you can use, or blocks that you have, issues that you may have. So if you really enjoy working with your pendulum, I do recommend possibly looking into that. But for the more casual person, pendulums can be really helpful if you're looking at what supplements are best for you. You can do, is it, say, for example, is evening primrose a good supplement for me to take? And my pendulum suggests yes. Now, if I say, for example, I'm trying to think of something that might not work so well for me. Or, okay, should I take MSM this time? And stop. So, different things like that. It's fun to play with, and because it reinforces your intuition. A lot of times, you may have an idea about what's best for you. And once you establish a relationship with your pendulum, it's really great to be able to double check. If you're unsure about how your pendulum is answering you, as far as like mine, we've seen mine, when it's yes, it spins in a circle, and when it's no, it just stops. Yours might be different. If you have difficulty determining which answer you're getting, you can always write on a sheet of paper, yes on one side and no on another, and hold your pendulum like so, and just allow the pendulum to move towards the yes or the no. And there's, like I said, there's all kinds of dowsing charts. There's alphabet dowsing charts that you can use. So I hope that you've enjoyed this little introduction, and I hope it's been helpful. And again, let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for joining me.